Please begin by giving rise to the motivation of bodhicitta, the thought, I by all means will establish all mother beings, limitless in number as the vast reaches of space at the level of perfect all-knowing enlightenment. At the same time, please give rise to the attitude of secret mantra, the Vajrayana, namely the vast skillful means, that is, the acknowledgement that all phenomena are primordially the nature of the five perfections. The teaching that we'll be looking at today and in the coming days is entitled A Treasury of Gems, a commentary by annotation of the great master Padmasambhava's pith instruction, a garland of views. And from among Sutra and Tantra, this teaching pertains to Tantra. So first, a few words about the Sutra teachings. Well, these Sutra teachings were given in 3 stages, with what we call the 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel. So the first turning of the Dharma wheel was the teachings on the Four Noble Truths, and these teachings were given in places such as Varanasi. Then we have the second turning of the Dharma wheel, the teachings on the absence of characteristics, which were given in places like Vulture Peak Mountain, in Rajgir, India, and so on. And then we have the final turning of the complete revelation, which took place in places like Lankavatara and so on. So these are the 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel, in which the teachings of the Sutra vehicle, the Sutra vehicle of characteristics were taught. Then, generally speaking, when it comes to the teachings of secret mantra, the teachings of Vajrayana, there are indeed many tantras that were taught by Buddha Shakyamuni in person. Tantras like the Kalachakra Tantra, the Guhya Samaja Tantra, reciting the names of Manjushri, and so on. So there are these and also many other tantric teachings that Buddha Shakyamuni taught in person. But he gave these teachings in secret, not openly. He didn't give these tantric teachings to a public audience. There are also tantric teachings he gave to gods and nagas and so on, like the gods in the heaven of the 33. So in short, Buddha Shakyamuni did indeed give tantric teachings in this world. However, the most well-known and widely spread teachings, or tantric teachings that we know of in this world, actually appeared 28 years after Buddha Shakyamuni's parinirvana. And Buddha Shakyamuni himself foretold this. He foretold the coming of the tantric teachings 28 years after his passing. In one of the sutras we find a prophecy by Buddha where he says, 28 years after my passing, the very essence of the teachings will appear on the roof of the palace of King Ja, and they will be taught by Vajrapani, and so on. So, what Buddha was saying here is that 28 years after my parinirvana, after my leaving this world, the very essence of the teachings, namely the Vajrayana teachings, the pith of the teachings, will appear in this world. Where will they appear? They'll appear on the rooftop of the king of Uddiyana. King Ja, who is the king of the realm of Uddiyana. So, again, what was Buddha saying with these words? He was saying that 28 years after my passing, the very essence and heart of the Dhamma, namely the Vajrayana teachings, will appear in this world. And where will they appear? Well, on the roof of King Ja's palace, the roof of the king of Uddiyana. And this is indeed what happened, just as Buddha Shakyamuni prophesied, 28 years after his parinirvana, on the roof of King Ja's palace in Uddiyana, from the sky fell a rain of tantric scriptures, and also a Vajrasattva statue 4 or 5 inches high. So King Ja received these scriptures and the Vajrasattva statue, but he didn't quite understand the meaning of the scriptures. Of course, in reality, King Ja probably did understand them, but he acted as if he didn't. And so he went off to see Guru Kukuraja, and he requested Guru Kukuraja to explain to him the meaning of the scriptures. And Guru Kukuraja did then explain some parts of these tantric scriptures. And then he pointed to the Vajrasattva chapter of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. And he told King Ja, you should practice Vajrasattva, as taught here. And King Ja then practiced the deity Vajrasattva accordingly. And just as Guru Kukuraja had foretold, he then came to naturally understand and comprehend the entire meaning of secret mantra through his practice. So, generally speaking, that's how the secret mantra teachings appeared in this world. When we talk about the teachings of secret mantra, we speak generally of 4 classes of tantra, right? Or 4 divisions of the tantric teachings. So these 4 are Kriya, Upa, Yoga, and Anuttara Yoga Tantra. For Anuttara Yoga Tantra, we could just translate that into English as the unsurpassable tantras. That's quite a common translation. So the unsurpassable tantras or Anuttara Yoga tantras is the class of tantra that the teaching we're currently looking at pertains to. This Garland of views and Mipham Rinpoche's commentary on it pertains to the unsurpassable tantras. And these unsurpassable tantras themselves have three further divisions, or classes, we could say. So first of all, the father tantras, secondly, the mother tantras, and thirdly, the non-jewel tantras. So the father tantras are the Mahayoga tantras, the mother tantras are the Anuyoga tantras, and the non-jewel tantras are the Ati Yoga tantras. And the teaching that we're looking at is connected with the Guyagaba Tantra, which is a Mahayoga Tantra. So, again, we have these three classes of unsurpassable Tantra, Maha, Anu, and Ati. And they appeared in this world of ours in different places. So the Mahayoga teachings appeared for the first time at Meri Parwa, the Blazing Mountain, or the charnel ground of the Blazing Mountain. The Anuyoga Tantras appeared in Namchak Parwa, which these days is identified as Mount Malaya in Sri Lanka. And the Ati Yoga teachings appeared in the land of Uddiyana. So these are the physical locations where these three classes of Tantra originated in our present world. And whom did they first appear in this human world of ours? Well, the Mahayoga and Anuyoga teachings first appeared to King Ja, namely to King Ja. And the Ati Yoga teachings were first received in this world by Garland. So the teaching that we're looking at today is a teaching on the Guyagaba Tantra, teaching essentially on the Guyagaba Tantra. And as I just said, this is, we could say, a Mahayoga Tantra. So we have this general threefold division of Maha, Anu, and Ati. But although these three classes of Tantra are distinguished from one another, we should also understand that there's not a great difference between them. Of course, there's some difference, but it's a slight difference. For instance, it's said that the Mahayoga Tantras emphasize the generation stage, the Anuyoga Tantras emphasize the completion stage, and the Ati Yoga Tantras emphasize the non-duality or the inseparability of those two stages. So similarly, in the mirror of Vajrasattva's heart, scripture, it's taught that the teachings of Mahayoga are the ground of all Dharma, the teachings of Anuyoga are the path of all Dharma, the teachings of Ati Yoga, the great perfection, are the fruition of all Dharma. So in this way we can see that these three classes, Maha, Anu, and Ati, are the ground, path, and fruition of the Dharma, of the teachings. So there is some difference between them, yes. Of course, if there was no difference whatsoever between them, then they wouldn't be differentiated. We wouldn't have this threefold classification, right? So there is indeed a difference between these three, Maha, Anu, and Ati, but we should note that it isn't a huge difference. It's not a really significant difference. So we shouldn't regard these three classes of Tantra as vastly different, but rather we should just see that they are the ground, path, and fruition of the teachings, respectively. Mahayoga is the ground, Anuyoga is the path, and Ati Yoga is the fruition. And again, the teaching that we're going to be looking at is commentary on Guru Rinpoche's A Garland of Views pertains to Mahayoga, the Tantras of Mahayoga. And the Tantras of Mahayoga contain a further twofold division. This is a division into the Tantra class and the Sadhana class. Or more simply, we could say the Tantras of Mahayoga contain teachings on the Tantra class and teachings on the Sadhana class. So the Tantra class contains the 18 great Tantras, and the Sadhana class contains the 8 great Sadhana teachings. And from among these two, the Tantra class and Sadhana class, our current teaching, which is connected to the Guyagaba Tantra, right? This pertains to the Tantra class. So, what are these 18 great Tantras? Well, they were first transmitted to King Ja. And these 18 great Tantras, as I've said, they pertain to the Mahayoga, right? They are central or primary scriptures of the Mahayoga teachings. They're comprised, first of all, of 5 major Tantras. So the major Tantra of enlightened body, which is union with Buddha, or in Tibetan, Sangye Nyamjor. Then the major Tantra of enlightened speech, vital essence of the moon, Dasangtikli in Tibetan. Then we have the major tantra of enlightened mind, which is the gathering of secrets, Samwaddupa. And then we have the major tantra of enlightened qualities, glorious supreme being, or Palchokdupa in Tibetan. And then fifth, the major tantra of enlightened activity, Garland of activity, Kamamali. So these comprise the 5 major tantras from among the 18. And then each of these 5 major tantras has 2 more tantras. So each of the 5 categories of enlightened body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities has 2 more tantras connected with it. So for enlightened body, we just said that the major tantra is Sangye Nyamjo, right? In addition to that, we have 2 more tantras of enlightened body. So for the category of enlightened body, well, the major tantra, as we said, is Sangye Nyamjo, right? In addition to that, then we have the 2 more tantras, Langchen Rabok and Langpo Churjuk, these 2. Then, for enlightened speech, the major tantra is Dasangtikli, right? So, in addition to Dasangtikli, then we have a tantra called Chikli Drupa and a tantra called Pema Wangchen. Then, for enlightened mind, the main tantra is Samwaddupa, gathering of secrets. And in addition to that, we have the tantras Tsesum Dupa and the Riwo Tsekpa. Then we have the category of enlightened qualities. The main tantra for that is Palchok Dupa. And in addition, we have Namgazu Namgazu Gyu, and also Damsik Dusi Gyu. Then we have enlightened activity, and for that the major tantra is Kamamali, and in addition we have Kala Shichu and Droma Tsekpa, making 3 in total, right? So altogether this then makes 15 tantras, right? 1 primary tantra for enlightened body, speech, mind, qualities and activities, and then 2 further tantras for each of those categories. Then in addition to these 15, we have the king of all tantras, the Guyagava Tantra, the Guyagava Tantra, which makes 16. And then we also have the tantra. So in addition to the Guyagava Tantra, we have Damsik Namgu, which makes 17, and then we have a tantra called Tamgi Shakpa, which makes 18. So altogether these are the 18 great tantras of Mahayoga, which were transmitted to King Ja. And all of these 18 tantras were taught by Buddha Shakyamuni himself. Well, they were originally taught by Buddha himself. One of these 18 tantras is the Guyagaba Tantra, right? And this is the teaching that we will be looking at today and in the coming days. So the Garland of views and Rinpoche's commentary on it pertain to the Guyagaba Tantra, and specifically to the 13th chapter of that Tantra. The Guyagaba Tantra itself has 22 chapters in total, and the text we're looking at focuses on the content of the 13th of these 22 chapters. So what do the 22 chapters of the Guyagaba Tantra cover? Well, they cover the view, meditation, offerings, mudra, and so on. In short, they cover the 11, what we call the 11 topics of Tantra. These are view, meditation, conduct, mandala, empowerment, samaya, accomplishment, offerings, enlightened activity, mudra, and mantra. And the content of all 22 chapters of the Guyagaba Tantra can be condensed into these 11 topics. So, just to sum up, all of this, everything we've been discussing, these 18 great tantras, the Guyagaba Tantra and so on, pertains to the category of Mahayoga teachings, right? So the Mahayoga teachings contain the Tantric class and the Sadhana class of teachings, and the Tantric class is comprised of these 18 great tantras we just listed. This Tantric class can also be called the explanatory class, because these 18 tantras, they focus on resolving the view by ascertaining the true nature of things, and they do this with very vast, elaborate explanations. So we could also say the the Tantra class is the explanatory class. But we also have, as mentioned before, the sadhana class, right? So what is the sadhana class about? Well, the sadhana class of Mahayoga teachings gives us a very condensed practical means for actually putting these teachings into practice. And primarily, these teachings are given in the form of 8 yidam deities. So, 8 main yidam deities. What are these 8 deities? In Tibetan, they're called the Drupa Kabgye. So they are, first of all, Yamantaka, the deity of enlightened body. Then we have Hayagriva, the deity of enlightened speech. Then we have Yangdak Haruka, deity of enlightened mind. Then Chemchok, the deity of enlightened qualities. Then Vajrakalaya, deity of enlightened activity. And then we have what are called the 3 worldly deities, Mamo Budong, Jigden Chudu, and Mepajanga. So the first 5 deities, Yamantaka, Hayagriva, Yangdak Haruka, Chemchok, and Vajrakalaya, these are wisdom deities or transcendental deities. And the remaining 3, Mamo Budong and so on, are worldly deities. There's so much we could say actually about, well, of course, about the Tantra class, but also about the Sadhana class and these 8 Yidam deities we just listed. We could speak about how they were practiced by the 8 great Vidyadharas of India. The Vidyadharas like Vimala from Kara, Manjushri Mitra, Nagarjuna Prabhahasti, and so on and so forth. There's so much we could say. We could tell all those extraordinary stories, but we just don't have time to go into these details. Suffice it to say that there is a lot of detail. There is a lot to say. Likewise, regarding the Tantra class, we could speak about the various masters of the past in both India and Tibet who have commented and unraveled the profound meaning of these tantras, masters like Buddha Guya, and so on. Rinpoche mentioned the names of a few masters. Also, we have, for instance, the great masters Dzogchen Shakya Jungni and Dzogchen Shirab Jakpa. There have been so many great masters, especially great Nyingma masters in the past who have unraveled the meaning of these tantras for us. Furthermore, we have the great Mahapandita Rongsom Mahapandita, and the omniscient Longchenpa. And then, most especially, in this context, most especially, we have the great master Mipham Rinpoche, the renowned Mipham Rinpoche, who is the author of our text. And just to mention a few more names, we have, for instance, the great Pandita Lochen Damashiri, Minin Chichen, the great master Dorut Tembenima, and so on and so forth. This is just to mention a few of the names of the many, many great teachers who've illuminated the tantric teachings throughout Tibet from the past up until the present day. In any case, let's go back to our specific teaching topic, which is Mipham Rinpoche's commentary on a Garland of Views. So, as I've said, this text pertains to Mahayoga, and this text pertains to Mahayoga, and specifically to the Tantra class of Mahayoga. From among the 18 great Tantras of the Tantra class, it pertains specifically to the Guyagarbha Tantra. And the Guyagarbha Tantra is said to condense the meaning of all of the other 18 Tantras. It's said to be the king or monarch of all Tantras, the origin of all doctrines, the heart or innermost wisdom of all of the Buddhas of past, present, and future, and so on. It's said to be the king of Tantras because it's endowed with these and in total 7 great unsurpassable qualities. And this being so, the Guyagarbha Tantra is described as a general Tantra. It's an incredibly precious, priceless teaching. And again, just to reiterate once more, this is the teaching that essentially we will be looking at today, the Guyagarbha Tantra. Specifically, we'll be looking at the content of the 13th chapter of this Tantra. What does the 13th chapter teach? It teaches the great perfection, the meaning of Ati. So this is what our text, Mipham Rinpoche's commentary on the Garland of Views, focuses on, the 13th chapter of the Guyagaba Tantra. So this teaching, a Garland of Views, was given by Guru Rinpoche himself. And when did he give this teaching? Well, he gave it when he was leaving Tibet and departing Tibet for the land of cannibals. Guru Rinpoche thought, well, these points in the Garland of Views are the very essence and heart of all Dharma teachings. This teaching, a Garland of Views, contains all of the most crucial points of the Dharma. And so to ensure that the king Trisong Detsen, and so on, his companion, Khandro Yeshe Tsogyal, the 25 heart disciples, and also the future generations of followers of practitioners, to ensure that they would not forget these crucial points, that they wouldn't lose sight of the real heart of the Dharma, then Guru Rinpoche bestowed this instruction, a Garland of Views, upon them. And this is the teaching that we're looking at today, right? We're looking at Mipham Rinpoche's commentary on Guru Rinpoche's root text, A Garland of Views. The commentary is entitled A Treasury of Gems, a commentary by annotation of the Great Master Padmasambhava's Pith Instruction, A Garland of Views. When we talk about the teachings, the Buddha Dharma, teachings of Buddha in general, we can make a twofold division. Or we can speak of teachings that are the direct word of Buddha Shakyamuni himself, and then teachings that are commentaries on Buddha's word. So we have these two main subdivision, right? The words of Buddha himself and commentaries on those words. So the teaching that we're looking today is a commentary, right? It's a commentary on the word of the Buddha. Guru Rinpoche's root text, A Garland of Views, is a commentary, and Mipham Rinpoche's commentary on that is, of course, a commentary. That said, the text that is the real root and origin of both A Garland of Views and Mipham Rinpoche's commentary, namely the Guyagaba Tantra, is the words of Buddha himself, right? But Guru Rinpoche's Garland of Views and Mipham Rinpoche's commentary on it, these are both commentaries in terms of this twofold classification of words of Buddha and commentaries. And in the past, in the ancient land of India, the great Buddhist institute, Nalanda University or Nalanda Monastery, followed a format of teaching the words of the Buddha using the framework of the 5 perfections, and then teaching the commentaries, or we could say the treatises, using the framework of the 5 principal considerations. So since the text that we're looking at is a commentary, then we will follow this tradition and we will explain it using the 5 principal considerations. So what are these 5 principal considerations? Well, the first of them is, who is the author? Secondly, first of all, who is the author? That's the first consideration. The second is, what is the main theme of the text? Third, from which scriptures does the text draw? Fourth, to which category does it belong? And fifth, for whose benefit and for what purpose was the text composed? These are the 5 principal considerations. So let's look at our text using this framework, or through the lens of these 5 principal considerations. So first of all, who is the author? Well, the author of this text, A Garland of Views, is Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava himself. And no doubt you're all very familiar with Guru Rinpoche and his life story. Guru Rinpoche was an emanation of Buddha Amitabha, right? He was born miraculously in this world, in Lake Dhanakosha, without relying on the physical cause and condition of a mother and father. He was then invited into the royal palace by King Ja, made the crown prince of the land of Udayana, and so on. So I won't say much more about Guru Rinpoche's life story. I think you're all very familiar with it. Oh, sorry, I just said King Ja, so rather King Indrabhuti. Guru Rinpoche was born miraculously on a lake and then adopted, so to speak, by King Indrabhuti, made the crown prince. He ruled his kingdom for a while, and then he engaged in practice in the charnel grounds and so on. He tamed the spirits and gods there, he gained accomplishment himself, and then, through the force of his aspirations made in previous lives, he travelled from India up to Tibet in the north, and there he established the Dharma. He converted the Tibetan people to the Buddha Dharma. So, in short, Guru Rinpoche, we can say, is really no different from Buddha Shakyamuni himself. He is inseparable with Buddha. He is one and the same with Buddha, one and the same as Buddha. And for that reason, he is often described as the second Buddha. So those were just a few very brief words about the author of our text, Guru Rinpoche. Now we come to the next of the 5 considerations. So from which scriptures does the text draw? Or we could say, what category of teaching does this belong to? Well, from among the 2 broad categories of Sutra and Tantra, it pertains to Tantra. And from among the many different Tantras, it pertains to the 18 great Tantras. And more specifically, it pertains to the Guyagaba Tantra. From among the 22 chapters of the Guyagaba Tantra, it pertains to the 13th chapter, namely the chapter on the instructions of the Great Perfection. What's the purpose of this teaching? What's the benefit of this teaching? Well, the benefit of this teaching is to swiftly and smoothly attain the state of enlightenment, perfect Buddhahood. If we realize the meaning of this text, Garland reviews, as explained, if we realize the meaning of this text, Garland reviews, the meaning that is further expanded in Mipham Rinpoche's commentary, then this is what will happen. We will swiftly progress on the path to attain perfect Buddhahood. Because if we realize what is taught in this text, well, we will realize the view of the inseparable 2 truths of great purity and equality. That is essentially what is taught here in this text, the inseparable 2 truths of great purity and equality. And that is the consummate ultimate nature of things. If we realize that just as it is, well, then we will realize perfect enlightenment. So to attain perfect enlightenment through such realization is the purpose and benefit of this teaching. What is the main theme of the text? Well, the main theme of the text is the content of the 13th chapter of the Guyagaba Tantra. Okay, so that was a very brief discussion of the 5 principal considerations. Now let's move on to look at the title. So now we can all begin to look at our texts. The title reads, A Treasury of Gems, a commentary by annotation of the great master Padmasambhava. So this text, A Garland of Views, is described as a pith instruction. What is meant by pith instruction? Well, a pith instruction is an instruction that is easily understood, an instruction that's accessible and easy to understand. That is what's meant by the word pith instruction. In contrast to the pith instructions, we have philosophical texts, or we could say the authoritative scriptures. These are texts that are actually very difficult to understand. It takes a lot of effort and very extensive study to gain a proper understanding of those philosophical texts. But here, Guru Rinpoche has condensed for us the very quintessence of all of those teachings into a pith instruction, into a formula that is easy to understand and easy to put into practice. So the Guyagaba Tantra itself is the condensation and the very heart of all Dharma teachings. And the very essence of the Guyagaba Tantra is its 13th chapter. And here in this text, A Garland of Views, a pith instruction, what do we find? Well, we find the very quintessence of that 13th chapter. So this is what's meant here by pith instruction in the title. Again, a pith instruction is that which is easily understood, an instruction that is easily understood and applied. Okay, so let's move on to the word view. The title reads A Garland of Views. So what does view mean? Well, view essentially means a state of certainty or conviction. We could say that there are many ways to define a view, of course, but essentially the view means certainty. So as Mipham Rinpoche says in his text, Beacon of Certainty, the view is defined as one's certainty in the nature of things. And so the view is defined as certainty in the nature... Sorry, I'll say that again. The view is defined as one's certainty in the nature of things, one's ascertainment of the nature of things. And it is in accord with, or you could say led by, or following this certainty that one then engages in meditation and contact. So essentially the view refers to a state of certainty, we could also say conviction. And as a result, we then really need to generate true conviction within ourselves, a real conviction. a real conviction in reality, a real conviction in the true nature of things. That's what we mean by the view. So, in this context then, to generate the view is to generate conviction or certainty in the inseparable truths of great purity and equality of everything that appears and exists, this being the true consummate nature of all things. So it's not enough just to have some vague notion of like, oh yeah, everything is pure and equal. They say everything is pure and equal, everything is the nature of the deity, and to just have this conceptual idea and to pay lip service to it, to bring it to mind when you practice, that's not enough. That's definitely not enough. We need to develop real heartfelt certainty within ourselves about the nature of reality, and that is what is meant by developing the view. And again, so first of all we develop the view, and then we practice meditation and conduct. And our practice of meditation is nothing other than sustaining the certainty that we develop through the view. So to first of all develop certainty, or to develop the view, is incredibly important. How to develop such certainty? Well, to do that we need to study the scriptures, the authoritative scriptures. And or, in addition or alternatively, we need to receive direct introduction to reality. And we need to receive such an introduction from an exceptional guru, not just any old guru, but a guru with an exceptionally high level of realization. That's also one way to develop certainty in the view, certainty in the nature of reality. Another approach would be, like I said, to study the excellent and authoritative scriptures. So what do we mean by excellent and authoritative scriptures? We mean scriptures like this. Guru Rinpoche's Garland of Views, which is the essence of the Guyagaba Tantra. And of course, the scriptures of the all-knowing Longchenpa and so on. Scriptures like this, like Longchenpa's great texts, and the texts of other such masters. It's through the study and reflection of these sorts of authoritative scriptures that we can gain certainty, a real conviction in the way things really are. In Lochen Dhamashiri's The Way of the Lord of Secrets, one of his commentaries on the Guyagaba Tantra, he defines the view as, in general, the view is defined as a mind that, by means of prajna, has eradicated misconceptions about a given subject and thereby arrived at a definitive, unambiguous understanding. So this is what we mean by certainty. This is what we mean by the view. I'll just read this definition once more. In general, the view is defined as a mind that, by means of prajna, has eradicated misconceptions about a given subject and thereby arrived at a definitive, unambiguous understanding. Okay, so let's move on to the next word in the title. Of course, we're following the Tibetan word order here, so the order of the English translation, of course, is slightly different. But anyway, the next word of the title in Tibetan is Garland. So we could also translate garland as a rosary or mala. It's translated here as a garland, so we have a garland of views. What this is saying is that there are many views, not just one view. The highest of all the many views is the view of the Great Perfection. But below the view of the Great Perfection, there are many other views. The multiple views of the outsiders, or the non-Buddhists, and then the many different views within the followers of Buddha itself. We have the Buddhist views of the Vaibhashika, the Sautantrika, which both pertain to the Hinayana, or the foundational vehicle, or we could say the Shravaka school. And then we have the views of Chittamatra and Madhyamaka, which both pertain to the Mahayana, the greater vehicle. And then within the Buddhist tantras as well. Well, first of all, we have the outer tantras, which can be divided into three: Kriya, Upa, and Yoga. And each of these three tantras has their own view, so that's three more views. And then we have the three inner tantras, Maha, Anu, and Ati, which each have their own view. So in this way, there are many different views, an entire garland or rosary of views. And the text, in being called a garland of views, Guru Rinpoche is telling us that, okay, here in this text, we will be laying out all of these views, looking at each of them one by one. So why are we going to be doing this? Why do we need to do this? Well, We say that the view of the Great Perfection is the supreme view. The Great Perfection itself is the supreme of all teachings. It's the pinnacle of all. Yes, we say that, but it's not enough just to say it. We need to know the reasons for saying that. We need to be able to justify our statement and establish it logically. Nagarjuna said, when you say that something is special, you need to be able to justify that. So, likewise, when we say, oh, this text, the Garland of Views, this instruction on the Great Perfection, is superior to all other instructions, well, we need to justify that statement. We need to be able to prove its superiority. We need to know what makes it so special. So, likewise in any other context, right? If we say, oh, this and that person is so special, well, we need to be able to prove what's special about them, right? We need to be able to back up what we're saying. So this is what we are doing here in this text with relation to the Great Perfection. The Guyagaba Tantra can be explained at many different levels. So actually there are some teachers who explain the Guyagaba Tantra according to Mahayoga, and others explain it according to the level of Anayoga, and others still explain it at the level of Ati Yoga. So here in the context of this teaching, Garland of Views, we are following the tradition of all-knowing Longchenpa and Mipham Rinpoche, who both explain the Guyagaba Tantra at the level of Ati Yoga, which means the level of the Great Perfection, right? So this is a very unique quality, or a very special quality of their tradition, the approach of these masters, Longchenpa and Mipham Rinpoche, and of course others who take the same approach. So, therefore, we have this garland of views laid out before us in this text. We're speaking here of the view of the Great Perfection, right? The view of Ati Yoga. That's primarily what we are discussing. And then we're looking at how the view of Ati Yoga is superior to all other views, and we're doing that by laying out all of these other views, by looking at this garland of different views in comparison with each other and with the view of Ati Yoga, thereby coming to see how and why the view of Ati Yoga is superior. So that's what's meant here by a garland. A commentary by annotation. So this is part of the title of Mipham Rinpoche's commentary, right? A Garland of Views is the title of Guru Rinpoche's text, and we're going to be looking at that text with Mipham Rinpoche's commentary, and he describes his commentary as a commentary by annotation. So there are many different types of commentary. We have story commentaries, commentaries by annotation, commentaries focusing on difficult points, and so on and so forth. We can speak of 6 or 7 types of commentary in the tradition of Buddha Dharma, but we won't go into all of those details. In short, the type of commentary we're looking at here is an annotation commentary. So what does that mean? Well, what is it a commentary of? Well, it's a commentary on Guru Rinpoche's text, A Garland of Views, right? Which itself is the condensation of the Guyagaba Tantra. And Guru Rinpoche's text, A Garland of Views, is very concise. It's just 4 or 5 pages in total. So here in his commentary, Mipham Rinpoche is unraveling Guru Rinpoche's text for us. He's fleshing it out. He's going through Guru Rinpoche's concise text and annotating it, pretty much annotating or commentating on every single word, sort of filling in the gaps for us, so to speak. So this is what's meant by commentary by annotation here, in the title of Mipham Rinpoche's commentary. The title proper of his commentary is A Treasury of Gems. So, gems are something very precious, right? Very valuable. They're things that are expensive, valuable, and also treasured, highly treasured, especially in India, especially in ancient India, when people would go out into sea and travel on long voyages in search of what they called wish-granting gems, and other valuable gems as well, but especially what they called a wish-granting gem. Gems that were said to have the power to dispel darkness, dispel illness, grant wishes, and so on. These incredibly, literally priceless gems. So here the author Mipham Rinpoche is saying that this text, this commentary, is just like a priceless gem. It is a beacon, a torch that's able to dispel the darkness of destructive views. It's also like a wish-granting jewel that can fulfill all of our wishes and desires by leading us to the state of perfect enlightenment. And furthermore, it's not just a single gem, but it's a collection, a treasury, or we could say a storehouse of gems. So with this we have covered the title, The Treasury of Gems, a commentary by annotation of the Great Master Padmasambhava's Pith Instruction, a garland of views. So we will stop here for today.